Now, Executive Suite with WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi.
Welcome to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi. Later on in the show, we're going to hear about some new energy investments being made by the Slater Technology Fund and what that technology has to do with. I also want to welcome our new listeners listening on the radio on 630 WPRO and 99.7 FM. We're glad to have you with us here on Executive Suite. But right now, I want to welcome onto the show Marc Streisand. He is the owner of Marc Allen Fine. How do you say the final word?
Clothiers.
Clothiers. And you actually have two other guests you brought with you behind us here. What are we looking at? What kind of fanciness is this?
Little headless guys. I wanted to show two kind of unique outfits.
Okay.
Both as we're opening up our store down in Newport, stuff that's a little bit more sporty, a little bit more fun and fresh. So what we did here is we kind of mixed and matched a lot of different styles and patterns, and that to me is how a really well-dressed man can put it all together. So here we have a beautiful linen and wool sport jacket, pair of cotton trousers, a fun silk tie to brighten up the colors and accents that are inside. And here, one of the really great things about this is the accessory of the scarf. So from Europe, men are always wearing scarves. It's a little bit different here in the United States, but we wanted to try to show a man that you can actually wear this. It's a little bit more whimsical. You know, you might get a little chill on your yacht when you're down at the water down in Newport. So
now I have to ask, because you're fine clothing, how much would these set someone be back?
Each one of these outfits, this outfit would probably set somebody back about $900. Mm-hmm. This one here is about $4,500.
$4,500.
Yeah.
So not necessarily grab it off the rack on clearance with this stuff.
No. Yeah, the difference being is that this is a completely handmade coat.
Yeah.
And it's made in Italy, and you know, quality costs money, unfortunately, in these days.
And we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
I want to start with one small question people are going to have. Are you related to Barbra Streisand?
I don't sing at all.
You don't sing at all, but
I am related to her. She is my cousin.
Have you ever actually met her? Do you see her at anything?
When I was a young boy.
You did?
That was 40 years ago.
So you haven't sold any clothes to her?
I have not her husband, although I'd love to.
Maybe at the next family reunion.
Would be a great idea.
Can do that. So give people a sense, Marc Allen, people might recognize you have the store on South Main Street.
Correct.
I'm sure many of our viewers and listeners have driven by that place. But what do you do? What's your specialty at Marc Allen?
You know, we're a lifestyle company. So basically what we do is we create wardrobes around a man's lifestyle, whether it be from the beach to the country club to the boardroom. And what we try to do is understand what he does in his life and what the clothing is going to do to accentuate his lifestyle. And what we really specialize in is designing and making custom wardrobes.
Now, are you guys in the back sewing the clothes on site? Or you mentioned Italy, are you buying it from overseas? How does that work? Where do the clothes come from?
So we do a lot of work on site. I can sew, but you really don't want me to put it together for you anymore.
So no sewing and no singing.
Right. Anything, S's,
yeah,
pass
not
on
into
those.
it. All
exactly.
Right.
No, but we make a lot of our stuff on our third floor. We have 3 floors in our main building here in Providence. First floor is your classic retail environment. We have a separate, covered area there that has all of our fabrics you can talk about doing our custom. Our second floor is a lounge, and it's where if I have a very, very private client that wants to come meet with us, we'll sit up there and we'll also entertain up there. And then our third floor is our tailor shop and our accounting offices and like a regular business.
Now you have, I know there's a wide variety of price points. We even saw that with the examples you brought, but you've mentioned in the past the most expensive suit you folks have ever sold out of this store, $35,000. Is that correct for that suit? What got it up to $35,000?
There's a company called Loro Piana, and they are originally known for their woolens and their cashmere. To me, they have the finest cashmere in the world. Essentially what they do is they offer a contest for the best woolen mills in the world. And they guarantee that whatever you produce that's the best, they'll purchase. If it is better than the year before, they will then make it up into a suit. But there's only 50 suits, enough fabric for 50 suits in the world. The fabric is so soft and so luxurious, and it's extremely expensive, $4,000 to $5,000 a yard, and it takes about 4 yards to make a suit.
To make a suit, so you end up at that price point. Now, so people are going to hear that and think, well, I don't have $35,000 for a suit. I can never go to this store. So what are people looking at if they come into your store? What price points do you try to get to? You are obviously high end. You make no bones about that.
Right.
But what are you looking at?
What we've tried to do over the past 3 or 4 years is to make our clothing more attainable to every person. You know, I used to say all the time, we're not for everybody, but nowadays we really are. If a man goes into a Joseph A. Bank, or he goes into a Brooks Brothers or a Nordstrom's, let's say, and he buys an off-the-rack suit for $900 or $1,000, We've developed a program with a company in Europe that allows us to do a made-to-measure suit for as little as $13.95. And it's fantastic fabrics. The guts, kind of like an engine in a car, are really significantly better than what you can buy off the rack. There's no fusing, there's no synthetic materials inside of it. It's still the stuff that I consider the heart of what a garment is supposed to be. So we allow a man to come in and really get the experience of what custom clothing is all about without having to go to the full direction of a bespoke clothing maker like what we really do in our store.
So some guys, maybe even some of the ones who come into your store, you know, their default is an old pair of jeans and maybe one of the 2 button-down shirts they own or anything. You see clothes very differently. Have you always been interested in clothes? How did you get into this?
You know, I'm not a very tall person, so for the vertically challenged, especially when you're in high school, it's very hard to meet a woman or a girl at that point. And my mother used to say to me all the time, if you want to appear bigger, you need to dress better. And she would take me shopping and teach me about colors and patterns and palettes and how they would actually accentuate your size without having you physically be different. That kind of snowballed in. I created a consulting company in New York City, and I wanted to take that value and teach regular people how to do it for themselves. So I did that for 6 or 7 years in New York until I decided to come into just making clothing.
How many suits do you own?
A lot.
Many?
How many do you own?
Not that many. It's embarrassing few because news doesn't actually pay very well.
Well, that's a shame. We'll have to change that.
Yeah, we'll have to change that.
I would say that I probably have about 40 suits.
Yep.
And sport jackets, which is where I find myself wearing more up here in New England, probably about 60.
Do you wear them all over time?
Oh yeah, I wear all my clothing.
Yeah.
If I don't wear it, I donate it to charity.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I pilfer through my closet once a year, and I traditionally give it to an organization called Year Up.
Now, people with longer memories in Rhode Island, they might remember the predecessor to your store, Briggs Limited, which was a haberdashery for
Correct.
years around here, famous name. So how did you wind up, you're not from Rhode Island,
No,
how did you
no.
wind up taking over Briggs and transforming it into Marc Allen?
I knew Briggs from the industry. Every year, well, actually twice a year, there's trade shows. And all the top tailors from around the country get together and we all commiserate and talk and what are you doing this year? What are you doing that year? He's a character. So when I met him, we had a really kind of a fun time together. After 9/11 happened and my wife and I moved out to New Jersey, the commute became almost 3 hours each way for 26 miles. He called me one day and it took me almost 4. And he said, "Kid, I hear you're unhappy." And I said, "I'm miserable. Come up to Providence." I didn't even know where Providence was. I knew it was in Rhode Island, but I didn't know how to get there. So he said, "Take 95 straight, you'll run right through it." I came up, and it reminded me of an area where I grew up, right outside of Princeton. And I said to my wife on the way home, I said, "We should do this." And it's a fresh new start, and 4 months later we were here.
And you took over the place in here you are today?
I took over the place, yeah.
So what was, one thing I actually wanted to get out there, why is it Marc Allen?
So, I didn't want the store to have any aspect of my name at all, because the store is not just about me. It's about the team and the environment and the experience that someone has when they come in it. However, I hired a marketing firm when I first moved up here, and I tried to come up with a name that was kind of homogenous, so that it was easy for someone to say, wasn't so memorable that they would like it or dislike it. And my first name is Marc, my middle name is Allen. And I didn't want to use Streisand's because she's got her time in the sun already. I wanted it to be ours alone.
There you go. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Marc Streisand about Marc Allen clothes and what you should be doing to make sure your wardrobe is on track. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi. Later on in the show, we're going to hear about a new company that is taking some energy technology developed at the U.S. Navy here in Newport and trying to bring it to a commercial sphere. And we'll hear from Slater Tech Fund about why they're investing in that. But right now, very pleased to be joined by Marc Streisand. He runs Marc Allen, the clothing company on South Main Street in Providence is your best known location, yes. But part of why you're here today, you're actually opening another showroom, your fourth, I believe,
correct.
in Newport later this year. You have Boston, New York City, and now Newport. Why did those appeal to you? Why did you want to have other places?
When I first came up here from New York, I wanted something that was easily accessible, because I still have a showroom there and going back and forth. So happening to Acela was really simple. I knew that Boston is a great demographic. There's a lot of the people for the style that we design for people. Newport's something that I wanted to do for the last 8 years, and an opportunity came up now to be next to one of my best buddies at 3 Golden Apples, and you know we have such a symbiotic relationship. the clientele that he services is very similar to the clientele that I service. And one of the things that I wanted to do was bring kind of the sophisticated, classic, but with a twist clothing that we do down to Newport. It's not there right now. So we figured it's an opportunity now to bring something new to that area. I love the Newport in the summer anyway.
Yeah, not a bad idea.
And our business slows down in Providence, so we figured let's go down there and have some fun.
Get where everybody else is by the beach.
Exactly.
Culturally, you always hear these debates, are suits over? As more people have jobs where they can wear, kind of relatively dressed down, and there are fewer businesses where you have to wear a suit. I mean, does that concern you? Do you worry you're a dinosaur and this is going to be all over, or do you think there'll always be a need for this?
In 2000, when we had the last recession, the last decent-sized recession, everything was from the tech aspect. CEOs started dressing like janitors. And what we learned and what we tried to translate to them was, you don't want to look like everybody else. It's okay to say you're successful. It's okay to say that you're the boss. So they might not wear a suit every day. And to directly answer your question, suits are never going to go away. People are typically still getting married in them or tuxedos. Lawyers are still going to court in them. Athletes are always going to wear them when they're on the show, going to a different city to play basketball. And you guys are definitely always wearing suits. So
true.
For us, it's not as broad a spectrum, but we still feel the suit's the most integral aspect of a guy's foundation in his wardrobe.
And in some ways, your company too, you're a throwback because you even do home visits.
Yeah.
You don't sell on the web and everything. I mean, have you felt any pressure to move away to get more streamlined to compete with the department stores and all, or do you think this is part of the appeal?
It's interesting. It's a really great question. We don't sell on the web purposefully. When you come to my store, it's an experience. You should have a great time. It's so often that men hate shopping. I don't want to go shopping. I wouldn't want to go to a mall either. But when you come into our store, it's inviting, it's warm, it's fun. We have beautiful club chairs. We relax. We kind of get to know you. And our business is a relationship business, much like any other successful organization. So, you have to touch the fabric. You want to feel it. You want to be part of it. And you can't do that when you're on the web. So you have to guess. Oh, I think I'm a size 15.5, 33. And the suit comes, and then all of a sudden, or the shirt comes, and it doesn't fit you well. Mm-hmm. And you have to send it back. All my staff is really, really well trained. We do training courses every month. I have tailors that work and come down and show them how to make things fit properly. The fabrics that we buy, you're not going to find what we have on the web in general consensus. We design a lot of it ourselves and then make it over in Italy or even local up in Fall River. We have a shirt manufacturer that we work with. So we try to buy fabrics and stuff that's not everybody has. You don't want to go into a party wearing the exact same outfit as somebody else. And you run the risk if you're going to go to a general store that way. Everything that we have, like the ties, there's only 2. That's it. And we don't repeat anything. All the fabric that we make for clothing, yes, I can order it from a book from Italy, but I have a full stock of fabric that a guy can pick, and it's just for him.
I have to ask too, you're in this high-end luxury clothing business in particular. How much was that impacted by the recession, and has it bounced back to where it was before the downturn?
We were very lucky. The niche that we have is luxury. Even though not all of our clients are extremely wealthy, people still appreciate fine quality, and it's much like a car. The high-end luxury market, a car, a plane, a boat, people are always buying those things. Those who can afford it, they're still going to shop. They might not buy 10 suits this year, they may buy 7, just because they don't want to show off. But that's more of the mindset versus they don't want to have good things. What we've seen now is that business is still on the uptick. We've been consistently up every year for the 10 years that we've had the business, thank goodness. And it's changed, though. The dynamic has changed. So, yes, we're doing less suits, but we're doing more luxury sportswear. People want that amazing feeling. This shirt that's back here, it's made out of such a soft, supple cotton that you wear it, and it's like, well, why wouldn't I want to wear this all the time? Or, this tie, the silk that it's made from in Cuomo is so delicious. And that's what we like to say about the clothing, because it's got a real sense of feel and luxury. And
is it tough, though, to be doing this in Providence at all? Because there is more wealth in Boston and New York than here. Or is there enough, people who quietly have the means to do this and are interested?
There's a lot of money here in Rhode Island. It happens to be one of the wealthiest states per capita. However, it's not showy. So in New York, they might wear a thicker pinstripe than what I have here, or a rope stripe, something very, very bold, and it screams. Here, it's a quiet luxury. So people do drive beautiful cars, but you'll see a lot of Audis. They're not so flashy. You're not going to see a lot of Bentleys. There'll be some, but the money, the wealth is acquired. Their homes are very tastefully done. Whereas in New York, you get a lot of glitz and glamour. Here, it's, again, quiet luxury. They all want great things. If you're driving a nice car, if you're driving a $100,000 car, you're not wearing a $500 suit.
Yeah.
He understands, that gentleman understands.
Unless all the money went to the car.
and which is entirely possible.
We're coming up on a break, but I just have two more questions I want to hit you with quickly here. First one is, do you think Providence has a bigger opportunity on style? We just had Style Week.
Yeah.
I know you're one of their advisors. I mean, do you think, is there a hub for that in Providence?
It's a great place, Providence, because it is so concentrically located between Boston and New York. The designers that they have at Style Week are fantastic. A lot of them have been on some of the TV shows, fashion runway shows. But the nice thing about it is that people are receptive. And it allows these younger designers to kind of create things. In addition, we've got RISD. It's the #1 design school in the world. So their textile division, their industrial design, they're so far ahead. And they're translating that into clothing. The RISD design shows, fashion shows, are unbelievable. The way that they can take some of the materials, recycled materials, and make them into outfits it's astonishing.
So last question for you. What is your one piece of advice, for the guys watching out there who maybe are like, oh, am I doing this right? What do they need to do to dress well?
Well, let me give you two. Buy the best quality you can afford, okay? And if money is the biggest thing, you can get something inexpensively, an inexpensive suit for $300, $400, $500, and get it fitted by a really good tailor, and it'll look like a $5,000 suit. So fit is the most important aspect.
All right, Marc Streisand, he's Marc Allen, their fine clothing. You can find it on South Main Street in Providence, soon in Newport, as well as Boston and New York. Thanks so much for being with me.
Thanks for having me.
Don't go away, though, viewers and listeners, because when we come back, we're going to talk to Enhanced Energy Group and the Slater Technology Fund about some cool new technology coming out of the Navy in Newport. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi, and I'm very pleased to be joined now by Thorne Sparkman. He's Managing Director of the Slater Technology Fund and a friend of the show. He's been on with us before. And Paul Dunn, he's the founder of Enhanced Energy Group in West Kingston. And the Slater Technology Fund just upped its investment in Paul's firm to $250. So I guess you owe him a little thanks, right? But
I do.
and I'm sure you're grateful for it. So before we get to you, Paul, and what your company's doing, I want to start with Thorne, actually. People at home might know a little bit about the Slater Fund. They might remember Lincoln Almond way back when founding it and its original sisters. What exactly do you guys do with the Slater Fund?
Yeah, and thanks for having us, Ted. The Slater Technology Fund is a seed venture capital fund with a special mission. We focus exclusively on game-changing Rhode Island technology companies, usually in the software, life sciences, and recently in the energy space, which is something I'm really excited about.
Now, where does the money come from that you guys are investing with the companies?
The money that we invest comes mostly from government sources. So $40 million over the last 15 years from the state, and now federal money that comes also through the state. And also when we make good investments, we reinvest that.
All right, Paul, so Enhanced Energy Group. The technology is a little complicated, but I trust you on this one. So explain it to the folks at home. What exactly is the technology doing?
Well, in a nutshell, we found a way to run an engine, whether it's a piston engine like you'd have in your car or ultimately a turbine. We found a way to run an engine kind of on its own exhaust. So it's a recirculating power system. There's no exhaust going out to the environment. And we have to bleed oxygen in and pull CO2 out. And like any power system, we make CO2 and water separately, and we also make power.
So that's pretty wild. You're taking what is usually right now thought of as waste coming out of these engines
Right.
and feeding it back in to keep the engine going.
Yeah, it's power without a tailpipe.
I knew you'd have a good line on this. So how does this fit in? Because people are going to hear energy. It sounds like energy efficiency. Is there a environmentally friendly efficiency aspect to all this? Is that part of your pitch about why this is a good technology?
Well, yeah, it's good for the environment. It's efficient, but it's really a cogeneration model. We're making power, but we're also making and capturing CO2. And traditionally in the power industry, you have only one commodity, the power that you put on the grid or drive some machine with. We have two. We make power and we make CO2. And that CO2 could be used to do a lot of things, but we think it's going to be used to increase oil production in a process called enhanced oil recovery.
So Thorne, why did this appeal to you? Why did you think this was a worthy investment?
Well, over time, we're going to end up transforming our power industry and decarbonizing it. And ultimately, that'll probably be because there's some kind of tax on carbon. But between now and then, you need a market for the near term. And it's somewhat ironic, but the petroleum industry spends $1 billion buying CO2, and that was an opportunity we couldn't pass up.
And Paul, can you explain how you were a senior executive at the Naval Undersea Warfare Center, NUAC? They do a lot of cool stuff down there at the Navy base in Newport. These patents were originally developed in the Navy, right? How did they end up with your company?
Well, actually, I was the inventor. Back when I worked in a part of the Navy base called the Propulsion Test Facility. And then after I retired from the Navy, I found myself in the gas equipment industry. And I realized that there was a way, I'm going to use Thorne's phrase, but there was a way to turn swords into plowshares, you know. And so we formed Enhanced Energy Group and actually licensed from the Navy the patents that I had done while I was an employee.
And did you see this potential immediately when you were an employee still, or has it changed over time what you think it could be done?
Well, when I was in the Navy, I didn't see it at all. It was when I got into the gas equipment industry and I saw what was happening in enhanced oil recovery and also in geothermal, thinking about using CO2 in a different way. And I realized that back in the Navy, we were trying to capture the CO2 just so we could pump it overboard and operate things undersea. But instead of just putting it in the ocean, you could do something useful with it. And
what's your plan with the new investment you received from Slater? What's next for you?
Well, we're engaging a lot of customers in the oil industry right now. We've got a small engine running, but we need to scale up and we need to get out into the oil field and find our first customers. So Thorne and I have been making trips to Texas, and we're excited. We think we're going to be doing something this year.
Thorne, only about 30 seconds left. You've been on the show before with energy companies like Volt Server. Do you see an opportunity for Rhode Island in this sector, in the energy? What's changing here?
Absolutely. Working on energy problems is one of the most gratifying jobs you can have. It's one of the most important problems facing the world. And Rhode Island is really an embarrassment of riches in terms of interesting technologies to work on. It's not about looking at 100 different ones and choosing among them. It's about taking gems like what we found with Volt Server and turning it into a fantastic company. When I was here with Volt Server before, Steve was the only employee. Today there's a dozen employees at Volt Server, and that's just a spectacular once-in-a-career opportunity for me to work with them.
Fantastic. Well, we'll keep an eye on Volt Server, and we'll keep an eye on Enhanced Energy Group, and I wish you well. Paul Dunn, inventor and owner at Enhanced Energy Group, and Thorne Sparkman from the Slater Technology Fund, and thank you for being with us on this week's Executive Suite. We'll see you back here next week. Have a good one. Thank you so much for coming, and stay up here.